Have you ever wondered why encountering a black dog at a crossroads makes some people change their route? Or why, in different parts of the world, a dog's howl is perceived as a harbinger of misfortune? Dogs have lived alongside us for more than 15,000 years, becoming not just faithful helpers, but also the subjects of numerous superstitions, omens, and beliefs. Today, we'll embark on a fascinating journey around the world to discover what amazing, strange, and sometimes frightening beliefs are associated with our four-legged friends. Dog superstitions are not just peculiar inventions of superstitious people. They are genuine cultural artifacts, unique windows into the psychology, history, and worldview of different peoples. Behind each belief lies a deep cultural context that reflects the relationship between humans and dogs over millennia. These superstitions can tell us about ancient beliefs, the fears and hopes of our ancestors, and how understanding of the world around us was formed. But before we begin, let's consider, why have dogs in particular become the subject of so many superstitions? The answer lies in the unique position they occupy in human society. Dogs simultaneously belong to both the domestic and wild worlds. They live alongside us but maintain a connection with nature, with what lies beyond human understanding. This makes them perfect mediators between the visible and invisible, between the world of humans and the world of spirits. Let's begin our journey in the British Isles, where dog superstitions have a rich history rooted in Celtic times. In medieval England, legends about ghostly black dogs known by different names, Black Shuck, Barghest, Padfoot, or Garm, were widespread. These supernatural creatures were described as huge black dogs the size of a calf, with eyes burning like coals, sometimes with horns or even the ability to become invisible. Particularly famous is the Black Shuck of Suffolk and Norfolk, a huge ghostly dog that, according to beliefs, roams the coastal towns and wastelands of eastern England. An encounter with Shuck was considered an omen of imminent death. There are numerous written accounts of meetings with this creature dating from the 16th to 20th centuries. For example, in 1677, in Bungay, Suffolk, Shuck allegedly burst into a church during a severe thunderstorm, ran between the parishioners, killing a man and a boy, and left burn marks on the church floor, which, it is claimed, can still be seen today. In Yorkshire, the ghostly dog was called Barghest. It was believed to inhabit moors and abandoned castles. Its appearance foretold the death of a family member who saw the ghost. Interestingly, the word Barghest possibly comes from the German Beargeist, bear spirit, indicating the continental roots of this belief. In various counties of England, there still exists the superstition that if a dog crosses a traveler's path, it brings misfortune. The details of this belief differ from region to region. In Cornwall, it's believed to be especially bad if a black dog crosses your path during a full moon. In Devon, they believe the direction matters crucially. If a dog runs from left to right, expect minor troubles, but if from right to left, prepare for serious problems. In Sussex, they believe that seeing 3 differently colored dogs crossing the road one after another foretells a death in the family. But there are also positive dog omens in Britain. In the Highlands of Scotland, there's an ancient belief that if a strange dog comes to your house and lies by the hearth, it brings luck and prosperity. It's believed that the animal senses the positive energy of the house and its inhabitants. In some Scottish villages, it's still customary to leave a bowl of water out at night for stray dogs, for luck. An interesting superstition exists in the coastal areas of Wales. Fishermen believe that if they encounter a dog with white eyebrows or light spots above the eyes before going to sea, the catch will be abundant. However, meeting a completely black dog before fishing is considered a bad sign. It's better to postpone going to sea. This belief is probably related to ancient Celtic ideas about dogs as guides to the other world. A black dog could lead the fishermen to the realm of the dead. Let's now move to Scandinavia, where dogs held a special place in Viking culture and mythology. The saga of the Inglings mentions that King Eystein was predicted to die from a bite from a devil's dog. The king avoided all dogs, but one day, while walking along the seashore, he stepped on a dead dog's head. A splinter got into the wound, his leg swelled, and the king died as predicted. In Norse mythology, dogs are closely linked to the afterlife. The fearsome dog Garm guarded the entrance to Hell, the realm of the dead, and on the day of Ragnarok, the end of the world, was destined to fight with the god Tyr, with both perishing in the battle. Echoes of these beliefs are still alive in Scandinavian folklore. For instance, in remote areas of Norway, people still believe that if a dog howls for 3 consecutive nights, looking in a certain direction, someone will soon die in that direction. Sweden has an interesting belief about a dog's sixth sense. It's believed that if a dog suddenly starts whining and pressing against its owner's legs on a deserted road, it means the dog sees a navya, the ghost of a recently deceased person who hasn't found peace. In such cases, it's recommended to immediately turn back or choose a different road. This is considered especially dangerous if it happens at a crossroads or near an old cemetery. But not all Scandinavian superstitions are so gloomy. In Denmark, there's a belief that if you pet 7 different dogs during one day, it will bring good luck for an entire week. And in some rural areas of Finland, people believe that if a dog licks a small child's hands, it will protect them from diseases and the evil eye. In Iceland, where sheep farming was widespread until recently, there's a belief associated with sheepdogs. If a herding dog suddenly refuses to go in a certain direction and shows anxiety, it means the Holdufolk, hidden people, something between elves and trolls, live there. Many Icelandic farmers still listen to their dog's advice when choosing a route for grazing sheep. Let's now move to Central Europe, where dog superstitions are no less numerous and varied. In Germany, there has long been a belief that dogs can see death when it comes for a person. If a dog starts howling while looking at a certain house, its residents should be prepared for the worst. This superstition has even been reflected in classical literature. In Thomas Mann's novella, Death in Venice, the appearance of a strange dog presages the main character's death. In some regions of Germany, especially in Bavaria, there's still a belief that a dog sleeping at the threshold of a house not only protects against thieves, but also doesn't let evil spirits and negative energy inside. Many elderly people still make sure their dog sleeps exactly at the front door, not somewhere in a corner of the house. In the Black Forest, there's even a tradition of making a small recess in the house's threshold specifically for the dog. It's believed that this helps it better fulfill its role as the spiritual protector of the dwelling. In Austria, there's an unusual belief associated with newborns. If there's a dog in the house, its hair should be put in the baby's first bath. This supposedly protects the infant from the evil eye and ensures health and longevity. It's believed that the most powerful protective properties come from the fur of dogs with certain colorations, red for boys and black with white markings for girls. In the Czech Republic, there's a strange superstition. If you step on dog excrement with your left foot, it brings luck in financial matters. However, there's an important condition. This must happen accidentally, not intentionally, otherwise the effect will be exactly the opposite. Interestingly, a similar belief is found in some regions of Poland, but there it's believed you should step with your right foot, and then you'll be lucky not in money, but in love. In Slovakia, there's an interesting belief associated with a dog's howling on Christmas night. If a dog howls on the night of December 24th to 25th, looking at the sky, it foretells a good harvest in the coming year. But if a dog howls with its nose to the ground, one should expect a poor harvest or even famine. This superstition is probably related to ancient pagan rituals dedicated to the winter solstice. In Hungary, there's a belief that if a dog chooses to sleep at the feet of a certain family member, it means that person will soon fall ill. It's believed that dogs can sense an incipient disease by smell and try to protect or heal the person this way. Interestingly, modern scientific research confirms dogs' ability to diagnose certain diseases, including cancer, by smell. So this superstition has a quite rational basis. Let's now move to the Mediterranean, where dog superstitions are often associated with protection from the evil eye and curses. In southern regions of Italy, especially in Calabria and Sicily, there's a widespread belief that if a black dog with a white spot on its chest barks 3 times at a stranger, it means the newcomer has the evil eye, malocchio, and can cast a spell. In such cases, it's recommended not to let this person into the house and not to conduct any business with them. In the mountain villages of Sicily, there's still a tradition when building a new house to bury a tuft of the family dog's fur under the threshold to protect the dwelling from evil spirits and ensure the well-being of its inhabitants. If the family doesn't have a dog, fur can be requested from neighbors, but it's important that the dog be healthy and have a good character. It's believed that these qualities are transferred to the house. In some areas of Italy, especially in the south in Apulia and Campania, there's a belief that dogs can sense natural disasters, especially earthquakes. If all the local dogs start barking or howling for no reason, residents begin preparing for a possible disaster, taking valuable items out of houses, stocking up on water, etc. Given the high seismic activity in the region, such precaution is quite justified, especially since scientific research confirms that dogs can indeed sense earthquake precursors several hours before the tremors. In Greece, dogs were traditionally associated with the goddess Hecate, the patroness of witchcraft, crossroads, and entrances to the underworld. It was believed that dogs accompany the goddess in her nightly wanderings and can see ghosts and spirits. If a dog started howling for no apparent reason, especially during a full moon, Greeks believed it saw the goddess of death or the souls of the dead. In some Greek villages, especially on the islands, there's still a custom on St. Fenorio's Day, August 27th, to bake a special pie, Phaneropoda, and give a piece to local dogs. It's believed that this helps find lost items. St. Fenorio's is the patron of those who are searching for something. There's a belief that if a dog eats a piece of pie and immediately turns in a certain direction, that's where the lost item should be sought. In Cyprus, there's an interesting belief associated with childbirth. If a pregnant woman often interacts with dogs, especially gentle and calm ones, the child will be born with the same character. But if a future mother is frightened by an aggressive dog, the child may be born fearful or even have some physical defect. Therefore, pregnant Cypriot women are traditionally advised to avoid contact with unfamiliar dogs, especially in the first months of pregnancy. In Spain, especially in the rural areas of Andalusia, there's a belief about the perro de la suerte, the dog of luck. It's believed that if a stray dog voluntarily comes to a house and stays there, it will bring luck and prosperity to the family. A particularly lucky omen is considered to be if the dog has white fur with black spots around the eyes, resembling glasses. Such a dog should never be driven away. It might take the house's luck with it. In Catalonia, there's a widespread superstition associated with dog hair. It's believed that if you find a white dog's hair on your clothes, it will bring financial luck. A red dog's hair foretells success in love, but a black dog's hair points to troubles and financial losses. That's why many Catalans prefer to keep light-colored dogs, considering them a kind of talisman for well-being. In Portugal, especially in the northern mountainous regions, there's a belief that a dog that often barks at an empty space sees the souls of the dead, or even the devil himself there. If this happens in a house, it's recommended to sprinkle that place with holy water and say a prayer. And if it's outside, it's better to go around that place. It's considered an especially bad sign if the dog backs away and its fur stands on end. It means it sees something truly horrifying. Let's now move to the East, where dog superstitions have their specifics related to local, religious, and cultural traditions. In China, the attitude toward dogs has historically been ambiguous. On one hand, dogs were considered loyal protectors and helpers. On the other hand, in some regions, their meat was traditionally consumed. In the Chinese zodiac, there is the year of the dog, and people born in this year are, according to beliefs, endowed with qualities such as loyalty, honesty, fairness, and selflessness. They are considered to make excellent friends and partners, but can be stubborn and conservative. Interestingly, in different regions of China, there are nuances to this belief. For example, in Guangdong province, it's believed that people born in the year of the dog are especially lucky in business, while in Sichuan, they're believed to have a special talent for medicine and healing. In China, there's a belief that if a dog comes to a house uninvited, it can bring wealth and prosperity, especially if the animal has thick and shiny fur. This superstition is related to the ancient idea that dogs can sense qi, life energy, and are drawn to places where it's especially strong and favorable. However, in Chinese culture, there are also negative superstitions associated with dogs. For example, a dog's howl is often interpreted as a portent of death or misfortune. In Yunnan province, they believe that if a dog howls with its muzzle raised to the sky, it foretells a fire, and if with its nose to the ground, it predicts the death of someone in the village. In such cases, it's recommended to perform special rituals to avert disaster. An especially bad sign is considered to be if a dog digs a hole in the yard of a house. This may foretell the death of one of the residents. In some villages, there's still a practice in such cases to immediately fill the hole and conduct a purification ritual, including burning incense and making offerings to ancestral spirits. An interesting superstition exists in Fujian province. If a person has a dog, and this dog suddenly disappears without apparent reason, and then just as suddenly returns after a few days, this is considered a portent of a soon and unexpected profit, an inheritance, a win, or a successful deal. The longer the dog was absent, the greater the profit will be. In Japan, dogs were traditionally considered protectors and guardians. Statues of lion dogs, Komainu or Koma-inu, were placed at the entrance to Shinto shrines to ward off evil spirits. Usually, these statues are placed in pairs, one with an open mouth, pronouncing the sound Ace, the first letter of the Japanese alphabet, and one with a closed mouth, pronouncing the sound Yun, the last letter of the alphabet. Together, they symbolize the beginning and end of all things, as well as complete protection of the temple, from the first to the last letter. In Japanese mythology, there are many legends about dog shapeshifters known as inugami. These creatures could take human form and possessed supernatural abilities. It was believed that some families kept inugami as familiars who helped them in witchcraft and could bring wealth or put curses on enemies. In Shimane Prefecture, there's still a superstition that if a dog fixes its gaze on a person and doesn't look away for a long time, it might be an inugami studying a potential victim. An interesting Japanese belief is related to dreams about dogs. If in a dream you're chased by a dog, it means that in real life, someone harbors a grudge or anger toward you. If you dream that you're feeding a dog, it foretells profit and success in business. And if you dream that you're petting a dog or playing with it, it predicts meeting a good friend or the beginning of a fortunate relationship. In modern Japan, there's even a superstition related to the order of walking dogs. It's believed that if you go out with a dog and twice circle around the block clockwise, it will bring luck and well-being to all residents of the house. But circling counterclockwise can attract problems and misfortune. This superstition is probably related to the Buddhist tradition of circumambulating temples and sacred objects clockwise, pradakshina. In Korea, there's a belief that if a dog digs a hole near a house, it foretells financial problems or even ruin. To prevent misfortune, you need to immediately fill the hole and put a coin or bill there. It's believed that this buys off luck and prevents ruin. Interestingly, depending on the region of Korea, the interpretation of this superstition can change. In some provinces, they believe that a dog digging a hole, on the contrary, is digging up treasure or wealth for the family. In Korean folk medicine, there's a belief that if a person is very frightened and suffers from the consequences of fear, insomnia, nervousness, the following ritual can help. Take the fur of a black dog, burn it, mix the ashes with water, and drink this infusion. It's believed that dog fur has the ability to absorb fear and negative energy. In modern Korea, this ritual is, of course, practically not used, but mentions of it can be found in historical and ethnographic sources. In India, the attitude toward dogs has historically been ambiguous and strongly depended on the region and religious traditions. In Hinduism, there is a deity with a dog's head, Dattatreya, who is considered an incarnation of the divine Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. He is depicted with 4 arms and 3 heads, accompanied by 4 dogs symbolizing the 4 Vedas. At the same time, in some regions of India, dogs were traditionally associated with impurity and low social status. However, there's a belief that if a dog comes to a house during a wedding or other important family event, it brings luck and blessing. It's believed that the dog is a messenger of Yama, the god of death, and its appearance means that Yama blesses the ceremony and promises a long life to the newlyweds. In some areas of Rajasthan state, they believe that if a dog rubs against a person's legs, especially a stranger's, it foretells financial luck. The longer the dog rubs and the more affectionate it seems, the greater the profit will be. However, this only works if the person doesn't chase the dog away and allows it to finish this ritual on its own. An interesting superstition exists in Kerala state. They believe that if a pregnant woman regularly pets a dog during pregnancy, especially in the last months, childbirth will be easy and quick. It's believed that dogs possess a special energy that helps relax and relieve tension. Modern research confirms that petting dogs indeed reduces stress levels and blood pressure, so this superstition has a quite scientific basis. In Tamil Nadu state, there's a belief associated with dogs howling. If a dog howls while looking at a certain house, it foretells death or serious illness for one of the residents. To prevent misfortune, one needs to immediately interrupt the howling by throwing a handful of rice or other grain in the direction of the dog. It's believed that this ransoms life from the gods of death and averts disaster. In Thailand, dogs have traditionally been considered protectors against evil spirits and ghosts. There's a belief that if a tricolored dog, black, white, red, lives in a house, evil spirits will never enter that house, and a fire will never happen. Such dogs are highly valued, and their puppies cost more than others. In some regions of Thailand, especially in the northern provinces, they believe that a dog that starts barking at an empty space or whining for no apparent reason sees a ghost or spirit there. If this happens regularly in the same place, it's recommended to perform a Buddhist purification ritual or invite a monk to recite special mantras. There's an interesting superstition among Thai fishermen. They believe that if, before going to sea, they encounter a dog that shakes its head as if shaking off water, it foretells a storm or heavy rain. In such cases, many fishermen prefer to postpone going to sea or change their route. In Malaysia, especially among the Chinese population, there's a belief that a dog that howls for no reason for 3 consecutive nights sees the ghost of a Pontianak, the evil spirit of a woman who died during childbirth. This spirit, according to beliefs, hunts men and small children. If a dog starts howling for no reason, protective rituals are immediately performed in the house. Garlic cloves are hung, sharp objects are placed on window sills and thresholds, and prayers are recited. Among the indigenous population of Malaysia, the Orang Asli, there's a belief that if a dog licks a child's hands, it will protect them from the evil spirits of the jungle and give them some of the dog's endurance and keen sense of smell. Therefore, small children are often allowed to play with village dogs, and contact with them is never forbidden. In Indonesia, on the island of Bali, where a unique form of Hinduism predominates, dogs are considered sacred animals. According to local beliefs, they are the embodiment or messengers of the god Bhairava, one of the fierce forms of Shiva. There's a belief that if a homeless dog comes to a house and stays there voluntarily, it's a special blessing from the gods. Every year in Bali, the holiday of Kukur is celebrated, a day when dogs are especially honored. On this day, dogs are bathed, decorated with flowers, and treated to special delicacies. It's believed that a dog that receives a blessing on this day will be especially effective in protecting the house from evil spirits throughout the year. There's a curious belief on Java. It's believed that if a dog rolls on the ground and makes strange sounds similar to grunting or muttering, it foretells a volcanic eruption or earthquake. Given the high volcanic activity in the region, such warnings are taken very seriously, and many locals begin preparing for possible evacuation. Let's now move to the African continent, where dog superstitions reflect the rich and diverse culture of various tribes and nationalities. In ancient Egypt, the god Anubis, the guide of souls to the afterlife, was depicted with the head of a jackal or dog. The cult of Anubis was one of the most ancient and important in Egyptian religion. It was believed that Anubis was present during the mummification of the dead and accompanied the soul to the afterlife, where he participated in Osiris's court, weighing the deceased's heart against the feather of Ma'at, truth. Echoes of this cult can still be found in modern Egypt, especially in rural areas. For example, there's a belief that if a black dog with sharp, erect ears, visually resembling Anubis, comes to a cemetery during a funeral, it's a good sign. The deceased will safely transition to the afterlife. But if such a dog comes to a house without reason and starts howling, it's a harbinger of imminent death for one of the residents. In North Africa, especially in Morocco and Tunisia, there's a belief related to protection from the evil eye. If a person suspects that they've been cursed or given the evil eye, they are recommended to find and pet 3 different dogs during one day, starting with a black one, then a white one, and ending with a dog of mixed coloration. It's believed that the dogs will take the negative energy and protect the person from the consequences of magical influence. An interesting superstition exists among the Berber tribes of the Atlas Mountains. They believe that if a dog chooses to sleep near a certain person, it means that this person has a strong positive aura and special spiritual qualities. Such people are often chosen as mediators in dispute resolution or consultants on important issues. In West Africa, especially among the Yoruba nationalities in Nigeria and Benin, dogs are often associated with the spirit world. There's a belief that the spirits of ancestors can temporarily inhabit dogs to transmit important messages to the living or warn of impending danger. If a dog behaves unusually, for example, persistently follows a certain person or shows inexplicable anxiety, it may mean that it's trying to convey a message from deceased relatives. In some Yoruba villages, there's even a special ritual of communication with ancestors through dogs. The animal is given something that belonged to the deceased to smell, and then its behavior is observed, interpreting various actions as answers to the questions asked. In the culture of the Bantu peoples in southern Africa, dogs were traditionally considered connected to the world of the dead. There's a belief that if a dog digs a hole near a house, it foretells the death of one of the residents. Moreover, the deeper the hole, the sooner death will come. To prevent misfortune, the hole is immediately filled, and a special purification ritual is performed, including sacrifice and fumigation of the house with special herbs. At the same time, among the Zulu and Xhosa peoples, there's a belief that if a dog comes to a house where a child has just been born, it's a very good sign. It's believed that the dog will protect the infant from evil spirits and the evil eye. In some villages, there's still a tradition of inviting a specially trained dog to the house of a newborn, which should sniff the child and thereby bless it. An interesting superstition exists in Ethiopia, especially among the Amhara nationality. They believe that keeping a dog with white markings on its forehead in the shape of a crescent or star in the house will attract prosperity and ward off evil spirits. Such dogs are highly valued and considered a sign of the family's high status. In ancient times, they were even specially bred for nobility and clergy. In Cameroon, among the Bamileke nationality, there's a belief related to hunting. If a hunter sees a dog shaking its head, as if saying no, before going hunting, it's a warning that the hunt will be unsuccessful or even dangerous. In such cases, many hunters prefer to postpone the outing or change the hunting location. In Madagascar, where animistic beliefs are strong, dogs are considered capable of seeing ghosts and ancestral spirits. There's a belief that if a dog starts barking at an empty space, especially at dusk or dawn, it means that the spirit of a deceased person who cannot find peace is there. In such cases, it's recommended to perform a special Famadihana ritual, turning of the dead, for the ancestor whose spirit, it is believed, was noticed by the dog. Let's now move to North and South America, where dog superstitions represent an interesting mixture of beliefs of indigenous peoples and traditions brought by European colonists. Among Native Americans, the dog was often considered a guide to the spirit world and a protector of human souls. In the mythology of many tribes, from the Inuit in the north to the Incas in the south, there are ideas about dogs as psychopomps, beings that accompany the souls of the dead to the afterlife. For example, in Navajo beliefs, there's an idea of a black dog, also known as Mayitzo, which accompanies the dead to the afterlife. It's believed that if a person was kind to dogs during life, the black dog will guide their soul safely. But if a person mistreated dogs, Their soul may get lost or even face danger. An interesting belief exists among the Lakota Indians. They believe that if a dog comes to a person in a dream, it might be a message from guardian spirits. The nature of the message depends on the dog's behavior in the dream. If it's friendly and leads somewhere, it's an indication of the right path in life. If it barks or growls, a warning of danger. If it just observes the person, a reminder of the need to be more attentive to one's spiritual path. In some tribes of the Great Plains, there was a belief that dogs could predict the weather. If dogs start playing and chasing each other for no reason, it foretells good weather. But if they become sluggish and sleep a lot, expect bad weather or snowfall. In modern USA, many dog superstitions represent a mixture of European traditions and local beliefs. For example, the superstition that if a dog barks at a person for no apparent reason, it means that this person has bad intentions or is dishonest is widespread. This belief can be found both among descendants of European settlers and among Native Americans. In the southern United States, especially in states with strong African American cultural traditions, a dog's howl is often interpreted as a portent of death. In some areas of Louisiana and Mississippi, there's a belief that if a dog howls for 3 consecutive nights, looking at a certain house, someone in that house will die within a month. To prevent misfortune, one needs to turn shoes sole up at the front door. In some rural areas of the Appalachians, there's still a superstition that if a black dog crosses a traveler's path during a full moon, it brings great misfortune. It's considered especially dangerous if this happens at a crossroads. For protection, it's recommended to immediately turn back or at least spit over the left shoulder and say a protective prayer. In New England, a region with a rich history of witch hunts, there's a belief that dogs can recognize witches and people practicing black magic. If a dog starts barking or growling at a certain person for no apparent reason, especially if this happens on church holidays, it may mean that this person practices witchcraft. Of course, nowadays such accusations are perceived with humor, but 100 or 200 years ago, they could have serious consequences. In Latin America, dog superstitions are often associated with ideas about supernatural beings and the souls of the dead. In Mexico, for example, the legend of a ghostly black dog, known as cadello, is widespread. According to beliefs, there are 2 types of this creature. The white cadello protects travelers, especially drunkards, from the dangers of the night, while the black cadello, on the contrary, lures the careless into traps or even kills them. Interestingly, similar legends about ghostly or demonic dogs exist throughout Central America, from Mexico to Panama, although details may differ from country to country. This speaks to the deep cultural connections between the peoples of the region and the common roots of their mythology. In Brazil, where traditions of Afro-Brazilian religions such as Candomblé and Umbanda are strong, dogs are associated with certain orishas, deities. For example, dogs are considered sacred animals of Ogun, the orisha of war, metal, and technology. There's a belief that if a dog licks a person's wound, it will accelerate healing, especially if the wound was received as a result of working with metal or mechanisms. In some regions of Brazil, there's a widespread superstition that if a dog licks a child's face, it will protect them from the evil eye and diseases. The saliva of a black dog is considered to have an especially strong protective effect. This belief probably has African roots and was brought to Brazil by slaves. In Argentina and Uruguay, there's an interesting belief associated with a dog's howling. If a dog howls with its muzzle stretched upward, it foretells a fire. If it howls with its muzzle down to the ground, it predicts death. And if it howls looking in a certain direction, misfortune will happen in that direction. To prevent disaster, one needs to immediately make the dog stop, for which a loud shout or a light pat on the muzzle is usually used. In the Andean countries, Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, where the traditions of indigenous peoples, especially Quechua and Aymara, are strong, dogs are often associated with the world of the dead. According to ancient beliefs, after death, the soul must cross a river in the afterlife, and only dogs can help in this journey. Therefore, it's customary to treat dogs with respect. After all, the afterlife fate of a person may depend on their goodwill. In some remote Andean villages, there's still a tradition of burying a small figurine of a dog with the deceased, or even sacrificing a real animal. Although this practice is now rare and condemned, it's believed that the dog will accompany and protect the soul in its journey to the afterlife. An interesting belief exists in Chile among descendants of European settlers. It's believed that if a dog unexpectedly starts licking the hands or face of a person who usually doesn't like it, it means that this person will soon receive unexpected news or an offer that will change their life for the better. This is one of the few cases where a change in an animal's behavior is interpreted positively. Let's now return to Russia and neighboring countries to examine in more detail the dog superstitions prevalent in this territory. Many of them have ancient pagan roots and are intertwined with ideas about house spirits and the afterlife. In Russian villages, there has long been a belief that dogs can see the domovoi, house spirit, and other spirits of the house. If a dog starts barking for no reason, looking at an empty corner or under the stove, the traditional dwelling place of the domovoi, it means it sees a spirit. If the dog wags its tail or shows friendliness, the domovoi is favorable to the house and its inhabitants. If it whines, tucks its tail, or its fur stands on end, the domovoi is angry, and measures need to be taken to appease it. The belief that a dog's howl foretells of fire, death, or other misfortune is widespread in Russia and neighboring Slavic countries. In different regions, the details of this superstition differ. For example, in some areas of Siberia, it's believed that if a dog howls with its muzzle raised up, it's a sign of fire. If with its nose to the ground, it predicts a death. And if looking at the door, it foretells the arrival of guests or the return of absent family members. In some villages, there was a custom in case of a dog's howling to turn clothes inside out or place shoes soles up. It was believed that this could deceive fate and prevent misfortune. An interesting belief is associated with a dog's behavior during a thunderstorm. If a dog hides under a bed or in another secluded place during a thunderstorm, the storm will be strong and prolonged. If the dog remains in its usual place and doesn't show anxiety, the storm will soon pass and cause no harm. In some regions of Russia, especially in the north and Siberia, there was a belief associated with dog fur. It was believed that items made from dog fur, mittens, socks, belts, had healing properties and helped with rheumatism, colds, and other diseases. In addition, such items supposedly protected against the evil eye and curses. The fur of huskies and other northern dog breeds was especially valued. In Slavic mythology, dogs were traditionally considered protectors against evil forces, especially against ghouls and vampires. There was a belief that if a vampire or revived dead appeared in a village, dogs would be the first to sense the danger and raise the alarm. For protection against evil spirits, it was recommended to keep in the house a dog with a cheprock, a dark spot on its back resembling a cross. Such dogs were believed to possess special protective properties. In some regions of Russia, especially in Cossack areas, there was a belief about dog shapeshifters. It was believed that sorcerers and witches could transform into dogs to harm people or spy on them. One could distinguish such a shapeshifter dog from a normal one by unusual behavior or physical features. For example, absence of a shadow or five-toed paws. An interesting superstition existed in the Russian north, associated with choosing a puppy from a litter. It was believed that the strongest and healthiest puppy was the one that first crawled to the threshold of the house. Such a puppy was usually kept for oneself or given to the most respected people in the village. But a puppy that crawled away from the threshold into a far corner was considered weak and cowardly. In some areas of the Urals and Siberia, there was a belief that a dog could predict the weather not only by its behavior, but also by the nature of its shedding. If a dog begins to shed intensively earlier than usual, expect an early and severe winter. If shedding is delayed or not very abundant, winter will be mild. In Belarus, there's an interesting belief associated with dogs and wedding rituals. It's believed that if on the way to the church, the wedding procession encounters a dog crossing the road, it foretells an addition to the newlyweds' family in the first year of marriage. The dog's color may indicate the gender of the future child. A black dog foretells a boy, while a white or red one, a girl. In Ukraine, especially in the Carpathians, there was a belief that dogs could see and drive away mavkas, forest spirits similar to mermaids. If a dog during a walk in the forest starts barking at an empty space or whining for no reason, it means there's a mavka or other evil force nearby. In such cases, it was recommended to immediately leave that place, reciting protective prayers. Also in Ukrainian villages, there was a belief that if a dog often and for a long time looks into its owner's eyes, it means it sees in him its former owner, that is, the person this person was in a past life. It was believed that such a dog would be especially loyal and would protect its owner even at the cost of its own life. Interestingly, many dog superstitions appeared in different parts of the world independently of each other. For example, the belief that a dog's howl foretells death is found almost everywhere, from Europe to Asia and America. This may be related to the fact that dogs indeed sometimes begin to howl before natural disasters or when they sense the smell of illness or death, which may be imperceptible to humans. Also, almost universal is the belief that dogs can see spirits, ghosts, and other supernatural entities. This belief is based on observations of dogs' behavior, which sometimes react to stimuli invisible to humans, smells, sounds beyond human perception, changes in the electromagnetic field, or even just shadows and reflections that we don't notice. Interestingly, many dog superstitions have quite a rational basis and are partly confirmed by modern science. For example, the belief that dogs can sense earthquakes has scientific grounding. Dogs can indeed detect the slightest vibrations and changes in the electromagnetic field before seismic activity, thanks to their acute hearing and other sensory organs. Similarly, the ability of dogs to anticipate the approach of a thunderstorm or weather change is scientifically confirmed. This is related to their ability to detect changes in atmospheric pressure, air humidity, and the concentration of certain molecules in the air before meteorological changes. The belief that dogs can determine a person's character and intentions also has scientific foundation. Research shows that dogs have an amazing ability to read body language, micro-expressions, and even chemical signals associated with people's emotional states. They can determine when a person is nervous, experiencing fear or anger, and when they are calm and benevolent. This makes them excellent judges of human character. Even the superstition about the healing properties of dog saliva has some scientific confirmation. Dog saliva contains certain enzymes and antibacterial compounds that can promote wound healing and fight infections. Of course, this doesn't mean that dogs should be allowed to lick open wounds, but certain medicinal properties of dog saliva do indeed exist. How did dog superstitions form throughout history? Most of them arose based on observations of these animals' behavior. Unusual dog behavior, which people couldn't explain from the perspective of their knowledge about the world, was often interpreted as a connection with otherworldly forces, an omen, or a warning. And since dogs do indeed possess acute hearing, smell, and other senses superior to human ones, they could react to phenomena inaccessible to human perception. Our ancestors noticed these reactions and tried to interpret them based on their worldview and beliefs. Additionally, superstitions often arose as a way to explain random coincidences and establish cause and effect relationships where they didn't actually exist. If an epidemic started in a village shortly after local dogs began howling at night, people naturally established a connection between these events, even if one was not the cause of the other. Over time, many superstitions transformed into cultural traditions, passed down from generation to generation. They became part of folklore and folk wisdom, even if their original meaning was forgotten or distorted. In some cases, superstitions were even incorporated into religious practices and rituals, thereby gaining additional authority and protection from skepticism. Interestingly, the attitude toward dogs in superstitions often reflects the attitude toward them in the culture as a whole. In cultures where dogs were highly valued as helpers, protectors, and companions, superstitions about them are usually more positive. In societies where dogs were viewed with caution or considered unclean, negative superstitions predominate. For example, in Assyria and Babylon, where dogs were highly valued and even used in medical practices, there were temples where sacred dogs were kept, which were believed to be able to heal diseases. Most superstitions about dogs were positive. Similarly, in the cultures of hunters and herders where dogs were indispensable helpers, superstitions usually emphasized their protective and warning functions. At the same time, in some cultures, for example, in a number of Islamic societies where dogs were traditionally considered unclean animals, superstitions about them often had a negative tone. Although it's worth noting that even in such societies, the usefulness of dogs for guarding and hunting was recognized, and there were positive superstitions associated with these functions. But regardless of cultural context, dogs have always occupied a special place in human imagination. Their ability to be simultaneously part of the human world and the wild made them ideal mediators between worlds, the visible and invisible, natural and supernatural. This dual position of dogs in human consciousness gave rise to numerous myths, legends, and superstitions, some of which are still alive today. Especially interesting are dog superstitions related to children and their protection. In different cultures around the world, there are beliefs that dogs are particularly sensitive to threats to children and can protect them not only from physical dangers, but also from the evil eye, curses, and other magical influences. For example, in Russia, there was a belief that if you put a piece of bread in a newborn's cradle, previously given to a dog to smell, it would protect the child from the evil eye and diseases. In some areas of the Carpathians, it was believed that if the first animal a newborn saw was a dog, the child would grow up strong and healthy. Therefore, often, as soon as a mother with an infant returned from church after baptism, they were shown a dog, preferably large and healthy. In Finland, there was a belief that if a child is afraid of the dark or suffers from nightmares, one should put under their bed the fur of a black dog wrapped in red cloth. It was believed that this would drive away evil spirits and ensure peaceful sleep. In remote areas of Mexico, the custom of placing a small dog figurine, carved from wood or molded from clay, in a newborn's cradle has survived to this day. This figurine, according to beliefs, will protect the child from diseases and the evil eye until they learn to walk. In the modern world, many dog superstitions are gradually disappearing, giving way to scientific explanations. However, amazingly, some of them show unusual tenacity, continuing to exist even in high-tech societies. For example, the superstition that a dog's howl foretells death is still widespread in many countries, including the USA, Great Britain, and Russia. Perhaps this is related to the fact that these superstitions address some deep human need to see signs and omens in the surrounding world, to seek meaning in coincidences, to feel a connection with something greater than everyday reality. In a world increasingly explained by science and technology, dog superstitions remain a small island of mystery and magic. Additionally, many dog superstitions persist simply because they have become part of cultural tradition and folklore. They are passed down from generation to generation, not so much as serious beliefs, but as part of cultural heritage, connecting us with our ancestors and historical roots. It's also interesting that in modern society, new dog superstitions are emerging, adapted to changed living conditions. For example, in some urban cultures, there's a belief that if you meet a dog of a certain color on your way to work in the morning, it predicts a lucky day. In Japanese offices, the practice of keeping a dog figurine or photograph on the desk has emerged. It's believed that this brings luck in business and protects from stress. In modern Western culture, the belief that dogs can sense good and bad people is widespread. If a dog shows inexplicable aggression toward a certain person, many tend to consider this a sign that something is wrong with that person. And conversely, if a dog shows unusual attachment to a stranger, this is perceived as a sign that the person is trustworthy. In the era of social media, even a kind of online superstition has emerged. It's believed that if you unexpectedly see a photograph or video of a dog while scrolling through your feed, it's a good sign, foretelling luck in current affairs or the fulfillment of a wish. This example shows how traditional superstitions adapt to digital reality. Scientific explanations for many dog superstitions make them no less, and sometimes even more interesting. For example, we now know that dogs can indeed sense approaching earthquakes, detect certain diseases by smell, and predict weather changes. But instead of debunking superstitions, these scientific discoveries often give them a new dimension, showing how our ancestors' intuitive observations sometimes preceded scientific understanding. There are other physiological characteristics of dogs that may explain some superstitions. For example, dogs can hear ultrasonic frequencies inaccessible to the human ear, which explains their reaction to invisible stimuli. They also possess a phenomenal sense of smell, capable of detecting scents at concentrations tens of thousands of times lower than what's available to humans. This allows them to notice changes in a person's smell associated with illness, fear, or even approaching death, which may explain superstitions about dogs' ability to predict death or illness. The study of dog superstitions is of interest not only to folklorists and anthropologists, but also to psychologists, helping to understand the mechanisms of formation and preservation of superstitions in human culture. These beliefs also tell us about the historically established relationships between humans and dogs, one of the oldest and most complex interspecies relationships in history. Dog superstitions, for all their irrationality, reflect the deep connection that has existed between people and dogs for millennia. They remind us of the time when the boundary between natural and supernatural was blurred, and humans looked for signs and omens in everything that surrounded them. What can be said in conclusion? Dog superstitions, however strange they may seem to modern humans, are an important part of the cultural heritage of different peoples. They tell us not only about dogs, but also about people, our fears, hopes, beliefs, and ways of understanding the world. Dogs have been by our side throughout human history, sharing our joys and sorrows, protecting us from dangers, and helping us survive in difficult conditions. It's no wonder that we've endowed them with mystical abilities and supernatural qualities, making them not just domestic animals, but also a kind of guide between worlds, protectors from evil forces, and predictors of the future. And even now, in the age of science and technology, many of us secretly believe that our four-legged friends know and sense more than appears at first glance. We notice how they sometimes react to something invisible, how they anticipate our actions and emotions, as if reading our thoughts. And in such moments, ancient superstitions don't seem so groundless. Perhaps this is the biggest dog superstition, the belief that these animals possess some special wisdom and intuition inaccessible to humans. And who knows? Maybe there's a grain of truth in this superstition. After all, science has not yet revealed all the secrets of canine perception and intelligence, and each new study only confirms what amazing abilities our four-legged companions possess. Dog superstitions remind us that the world is still full of mysteries and wonders, and that sometimes it's worth listening to the intuition of our ancestors, even if it's clothed in the form of strange and inexplicable beliefs. After all, who among us hasn't felt shivers down their spine upon hearing a dog's howl on a dark night, or hasn't wondered how a dog unerringly chooses among strangers precisely the one who fears dogs or doesn't like them? In these small everyday miracles, dog superstitions continue to live, continuing to excite our imagination and reminding us of the deep and mysterious connection that exists between humans and their oldest friend, the dog. Thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed this fascinating journey into the world of dog superstitions, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for new interesting stories about animals and cultural traditions of different peoples.